Welcome to the Arizona Construction and Renovations Employee and Staff Training Program. These tutorials are meant to enhance your knowledge of our internal processes and are not to be shared with others outside of the company.
Hello and welcome to the role overview and PSA training for an estimator. Today I'll be going over your role, an overview of the responsibilities of your role, your direct interactions with PSA, the items you'll receive from other roles, as well as those that other roles expect from you. I will also be covering the teams you collaborate with, how to measure your success within the company, and where to go for help should you need it. So let's get started. As an estimator, the purpose of your role is to provide fair and accurate estimates across residential and commercial reconstruction, renovation, mitigation, and PCA jobs to make informed decisions, secure approvals, and protect margins. The primary focus of your job is for site assessments, doing site assessments, scoping, estimating, creating budgets, and then doing revisions and supplements. The major people that you interact with internally is going to be project coordinators who will be scheduling and assigning jobs to you as an estimator, PMs, project managers who you'll be creating budgets for and passing jobs off to with a warm handoff, accounts receivable, AR for invoicing and clarifications of costs on your jobs. And externally, you'll be communicating with clients. You'll be the point of contact from the time of an inspection until ATP. Before inspection is the PC is the point of contact, and after ATP, the project manager becomes the point of contact. So you can still expect to speak to some of our clients after that. Adjusters, carriers, and TPAs for policy decisions and guidelines. If you ever have any questions about coverage, obviously the adjuster and the insurance carrier will be better suited to answer your questions than the client themselves. And then lastly, subs and vendors for bidding. If there are things that you need bid before you're able to estimate, you'll be required to reach out to them. An overview of your role from beginning to end. So your job begins, like I had said, at assignment and scheduling of the site inspection. Project coordinator will determine what jobs get assigned to you, and they will set up schedules based on your availability and your current workload. So that's when you first will see a job, and it ends at ATP. So as soon as the job is authorized to proceed, or ATP, the job moves out of your hands into operations, where a project manager will be assigned. The only exception to that is for revisions and supplements. Obviously, if a determination is needing to be made of how much something will cost that was not originally scoped, originally estimated, you should be advising the costs associated with that because of your relationship with the customer and the details you have about the job. Things you receive from previous roles. The project coordinator is going to obviously assign you the job and give you the job and make that assignment into a job in PSA to be used for note-taking and date input. Schedules as well. The PC will be delivering you calendar invites in Outlook and notes in PSA as well as scope descriptions, claim number, carrier and TPA details, gate codes, really just any details about the things we initially discover when speaking with the clients. There's nobody else that really comes before that besides the project coordinator, so they are the only ones delivering those things to you. So the next role, AR, you are delivering an approved estimate with accurate amounts and deductible information, if necessary, to send a contract and an invoice. Accounts receivable needs to have the most up-to-date estimate that was approved. So they have a single source of truth about what costs are, and they can appropriately write a contract with that first payment in mind. And deliverable to project managers is a work order with accurate budgets, a full scope, and the before photos of the job. All of those things are necessary to close out a job or to hand them off to a project manager so they can work it. The before photos are necessary for some of our TPAs, but also just gives them a good idea of what they're walking into. And the work order with accurate budgets and a full scope will allow them to understand what has been approved and what the client's expectations are for a completion of that project. The key transition points are when a site has been inspected, and then the estimate being uploaded, that estimate then being approved, and an authorization to proceed. And then later, also, like I had said, revisions and supplements. Those are the key points where responsibilities will change for you. Obviously, before site inspected, you just need to inspect the site. After inspection, you'll be expected to upload an estimate, send it for internal review if it's core, or upload it to the TPA portal if it is a TPA job. Once the estimate is uploaded, then we're waiting on estimate approval. You might have to go through multiple rounds of revisions with the client or with the carrier or the TPA before it actually gets approved. But after approval, we then inform AR and they send out a contract and an invoice. And after that's done, it goes to ATP, where you're no longer responsible for that job until a possible revision or supplement comes up. Next, we're moving into PSA, where I'm sharing my screen here. So daily, weekly tasks in PSA, daily review of your assigned jobs, update any statuses or notes, anything that's changed on those jobs. The project coordinator's also going to be in your files, checking on things and adding notes and updates, but they do not know what you know. So you have to add those notes into there, semi-permanent records so we can keep track of the progress of the job and also inform each other through the workflows of what step we're on and what steps we've taken. Next, the import of approved estimate work orders and budgets. Not necessarily a daily task, but anytime you have an approved estimate, you can be prepared to do a takeoff. You can be prepared to get that work order into PSA in preparation for that job being passed off to a project manager. The only time we get an approved estimate and we would not pass it off to a project manager is if the contract does not get signed for some reason or the invoice is not paid. So if we have an approved estimate, if we have ATP and a takeoff request, you'll be importing your approved estimate work orders with budgets. And then also revising and supplementing as necessary. And weekly, your responsibilities is going to be meeting with the PC to determine availability and deadlines. Next, in PSA, the primary screens that you'll be functioning out of. So here in Proven Jobs, the info tab of a job is where we find a lot of information just regarding the job's intake info that we've captured. Next, the dates tab as well is going to be useful for checking when things, when the last progress was made and then your next responsibility, the thing that needs to get filled in. So dates push workflows, which determine the automatic notifications that go out. When you do something, you mark the date associated with that action and it moves the workflow forward. The notes tab is also important because we can leave notes here. You can also check notes for things that the project coordinator or the TPA or carrier have posted. If it's linked to XA, we'll see an Exactware tab up here showing that it's linked, and those notes can come in automatically from that TPA. If it's linked to Symbility, this will say Symbility and similar things will happen. If there is no link and it's a core job, or there's no link available, then obviously no notes will be coming in from a portal, but we can communicate internally here, and by making notes public, you can communicate externally. Next, after notes is going to be the attachments tab. So this is where you can upload an approved estimate. There should be subfolders in here. This job is not a great example, but the subfolders should house things like, should have a construction photos folder. It should have a, just gonna find a job that has that. You can sort your own jobs. Let's see. All right. So we've got some folders here. We've got photos, and this will in the future be labeled construction photos with subfolders inside of that of before, after, and during. Before, during, and after. Also, an approved estimate folder will be put in here where only the approved estimate will live. So if we have an approved estimate by the client, TPA carrier, whatever, that goes into here to make sure that we do accurate invoicing and the contract is accurate. If we have to do a revision or supplement, that approved estimate goes into inactive files and we upload the new approved estimate into there. Also, your before photos the before photos for every job are captured by you. We need before photos for every job. So whether you come in here and you put every photo labeled before into the before folder inside of there, um, or you just upload a photo report, either one is acceptable for the clients that we work with. So if you want to upload a full photo report out of XA or Symbility, that is perfectly acceptable, but it still has to be labeled before. And then scope and photos, that's pretty obvious. We no longer import GTOs because they are work orders, which is the next tab that we're going to look at. So after attachments, we move on to work orders. Here's where you will actually import your estimate. Once a job has a RTO sent out to the estimator saying that they're requesting a takeoff or requesting that your work order get imported, you're going to visit whatever estimating software that you used and export that or send it straight to Proven Jobs. There are videos about how to do that with Exactware and with Symbility, so you can reference those videos, but you can send the work orders to here and then sort them, make sure that the information is accurate, adjust margins to make them appropriate, and then that is a GTO. That is what we formerly called a GTO. Your takeoff, your budget would be created and ready for a project manager, and then you upload your scope and photos. After work order, we are also going to use this tab. It's important to know where to find the link to go to the exact job. Once you've logged into Exact Analysis, which I have not, this will take you directly to that job by clicking on that link. Same thing happens for Stability. You click on that and it takes you directly to your job. Other screens that we use outside of PSA is just going to be Exact Analysis. The assignments that you've been given, the jobs that you are currently technically project manager of, even though you are a director, an estimator, you're still called the project manager in Exact Analysis until a project manager is assigned. Key data in PSA. So scope notes, very important, understanding what you're going to be estimating for before you show up. Line items and costs. So understanding your work orders is very important. Understanding how this information is used by a project manager. So review of the work order import instructional video that I made is very important because as soon as you start getting jobs approved and contracts signed, you will need to be able to import work orders effectively without spending too much time. So get them imported, get them customized so that our margins are appropriate for your goals. Category codes, it's important to understand those as they come through if you are importing an Exactware estimate, understanding how the category codes affect the work order and how you can adjust margins inside of each category for every item inside. Overhead and profit is its own category code, and it will always have a 100% margin, which can then be compared to the total cost of the job and the percentage margin for everything else. So in that other video, that explains how that is done. Overhead and profit settings, important to know as well. Supplement details and approval status. So all of those items are important for you to understand when you are functioning inside of PSA, inside of Proven Jobs, and you are importing your work orders for the next person to use. Notifications from PSA for pre-construction agreements for PCA job types. You'll be informed when the design is complete. You'll be required to submit for permit. So in case a project coordinator is communicating as well with the contacts on the job, or if they are monitoring the approvals or the completion of the design, maybe they'll mark that a design was completed. And so if they do that, it will inform you to submit that design for permitting. For core and TPA jobs, you are informed upon a job assignment immediately. You are informed when an inspection has been scheduled, and that email will include a link to the job, date and time of the inspection, as well as all the customers, all the clients' relevant details. Any approvals, also you get notified, even if you're the one putting the date in, it will still notify you that that job has been approved, and it will tell you what the next step is. And then the takeoff request, which will just inform you that you need to import a work order. That will also inform you. Each of these come in the form of an email, and they also log a note on the job. So two records there as far as notification goes. Specifically for MIT jobs, your notifications at a PSA will include mitigation complete in case the mitigation manager doesn't communicate that to you directly. You get assigned to a job, the mitigation manager marks it complete. It will let you know that it is complete and you need to produce an estimate. It will also give you an optional, uh, it will give you an option to inspect if necessary. If the mitigation photos are um, thorough enough, if they're taken thoroughly enough to where it tells a whole picture of the job and everything can be captured from um, the equipment logs as well as the dry logs, then we should be able to estimate without visiting the site as long as we have the appropriate information. Um, Last notification out of PSA is going to be a reminder of certain fees. For certain TPA jobs, we have the ability to write for certain things, like when it comes to mold, remediation, abatements, certain hazards that are present when we're there. If that subtype for those specific jobs is chosen, when we get to certain steps, the estimator will be reminded to add fees for testing, for asbestos in certain circumstances, or to write for air clearance tests. So reminder of certain fees will be sent out for those specific job subtypes. The next section we're moving into is deliverables. So the main outputs that an estimator has is a detailed estimate, budgeted work orders, revisions and supplements, and PCA designs and permits. PCA being pre-construction agreements. The quality and completion standards. Your estimate accuracy should be within TPA guidelines and industry tolerances. So overestimating repetitively will get you flagged with TPAs. They will notice that you are trying to write for more square footage than exists in the house, and we can be suspended for things like that. So the estimate needs to be as accurate as possible for any of our clients, but specifically for TPA jobs as well. Full documentation of an inspection also needs to be of a high quality. We need to make sure that the photos uh, note the appropriate items as based on the job. For TPA, you will need to take risk photos, front of house, front of property. So those risk photos are important. You also need to get a photo of the cause of loss, the COL. Um, that COL is important because we need to either show that the cause of loss has been fixed, meaning we can proceed with repairs, or noticing the cause of loss and photographing it, you'll notice it is not fixed, at which point we will need to inform the client that we cannot proceed with repairs until they fix the cause of loss, because typically cause of loss is not covered by insurance companies. They fix what happened as a result of the loss, but they do not fix the cause of the loss themselves. So make sure you get photos of that, full documentation of all of your jobs. Everything that you do needs to be TPA and carrier or insurer compliant, and we need to provide client-ready estimates that are easy to read. You make your estimates too detailed and not readable by the average client that we deal with, appropriate to your audience, then they're not going to be able to read it. We don't need to make it purposely confusing. Deadlines for deliverables. So your TPA and insurance jobs, you have 48 hours within your site inspection to produce an estimate. For non-TPA jobs, you have 2 weeks typically of the site inspection to get that estimate produced. You need to be communicating with your clients regularly. If there's going to be a delay, you need to let them know. If there's not going to be a delay, you can also just reach out and let them know that you're on time, that estimate's forthcoming. For PCAs, timely permitting and planning, we need to make sure that we get our designer, architect, whoever it is that we're hiring out there as quickly as possible. And then we need to stay on them. They are not the most reliable when it comes to timing, so you often have to push them multiple times to get them to give you a response and produce that design for you so we can push it on to permitting. For revisions, you have less than 24 hours after the note typically in order to produce those revisions and upload them to the TPA. For our clients, we should also stick to the same thing depending on the size of the revision. but 24 to 48 hours for core jobs is an appropriate time frame. For supplements, we have 48 hours after a note has been added into PSA. So if a note's been added saying we need a supplement for something that was found, additional damage inside the wall, whatever the case is, um, after that supplement, we have 48 hours. So the key distinction there between revisions and supplements, a revision happens prior to the estimate being approved. So this is especially um, relevant to TPA jobs. When there is a revision note, that means the estimate hasn't been QA, QA being the TPA, or client being the carrier, hasn't been approved by either of those entities or only one of those entities. So if that is the case and the revision comes through, we have less than 24 hours to provide that. If it is contractor connection and they post the note prior to 1 p.m., I believe that we have a deadline of same day to produce that revision. So check on the guidelines, speak with your project coordinator, and keep up on those revisions. Good rule of thumb is if it comes in before noon, handle it that day. If it comes in after that, you have 24 hours to complete it. It's either noon or 1. Check in on that. Supplements happen after the fact, after it's been approved. We have a contract, we're currently working, and we find additional damage. That is a supplement. Revisions, pre-approval, supplements after approval. So 24 and 48 hours respectively. As far as who uses these deliverables, the project coordinator uses the notes that we provide to update TPAs and clients. There is a certain deadline that we have to communicate with these TPAs. Usually it's a weekly basis. Sometimes it's sooner than that. But when we arm our project coordinators with relevant information to the job, they can speak intelligently to TPA and clients and make us seem reputable and professional in the way that we handle our jobs, potentially leading to more jobs and a higher POM score. And it allows them to be more agreeable when we discuss, real issues with them. They are more willing to listen if we have a good relationship with them and we need certain exceptions or delays approved. Other deliverables, the clients and adjusters review our estimates that we deliver for approval. Very simple. Project managers, as I had mentioned, use the work orders, specifically their budgets, to make sure that they're making informed decisions about what they are spending on job to stay within margins. So they trust us to provide good budgets. AR uses an estimate to determine the contract amount as well as how much the first invoice will be. So that is how deliverables are handled. Next section we've got is collaboration. So our internal communication. You are going to be communicating with PCs that we've mentioned for scheduling and information clarification about jobs. You will also be communicating with project managers and operations managers about the feasibility of a scope and the production input. So what information comes into production, making sure that that is accurate and usable, making sure the project manager has everything they need prior to job start from the estimator. Accounts receivable, they will be requesting information, communicate with them about contract and invoice clarification, as we had mentioned before. Externally, you discuss with clients site walks, estimate presentations, and with TPA and carriers, you will be communicating about scope and coverage clarification, guideline clarification, and any supplements and revisions. You'll be communicating through the portals with them about that or directly through email. Subs and vendors, we communicate with them as well for labor and material quotes. As I mentioned before, potentially you'll be meeting subs and vendors prior to it entering production in order to collect bids, to make sure you are informed when going into estimating something, a specific trade or something you're uncertain about where we have to get a sub involved. The preferred method and tools of communication is going to be PSA mainly, proven jobs, where we'll be adding notes and attachments, making sure we are audit ready. And then through XA and Stability as well, making sure we have structured communication between TPA and the carrier and us. Also Outlook, formal estimate delivery is provided through Outlook. It's given to the clients for core work. Obviously, we upload through our estimating software that we're forced to for TPA jobs, but the actual formal estimate delivery for anything non-TPA is going to be done through Outlook. That's also where you manage your calendar for scheduled inspections. The Your phone as well as WhatsApp, so just standard text and calls as well as WhatsApp, is for urgent communication and coordination internally and externally. As far as escalation goes, when and how to escalate and to who. Internal, if you're having any issues, I recommend, if it's other estimators, going to a senior estimator. If it's anything based, if it's anything that has to do with your technology, your computer, phone, the system, obviously you would escalate that to IT. Any other issues, you can just go straight to owners. You can go to the ownership. The project coordinator is going to manage your schedule, but they are not necessarily your boss. So you can go directly to senior estimator or owners for any escalation issues. Externally, you can escalate to the TPA or carrier for disputes. And sometimes to the client, things can be escalated, but that is very rare. Mainly just internal escalation is what estimators deal with. The way that you measure your success. So our next section here is KPIs. The way you measure success is your MICA Servio audit for TPA jobs. So whenever you are uploading a job and you're forced to or required to submit the MICA or a Servio audit that uses the carrier guidelines to determine your accuracy of your estimate automatically. We're shooting for a 95% or higher. That would score us a 5.0 on the PALM score. So even if there are some items that are questionable, um, emotion needs to be taken out of it. You know, if you're declined by a TPA to add something, if they tell you not to add it and then to add it later, let's not add it out of spite. Let's get that MICA Servio audit at 95% or higher, hopefully 100%. And then for other items we are not allowed to add during that initial review process, we can speak directly with the carrier after that and add them onto the estimate. Other measures of success: average estimate delivery for TPA, less than 48 hours. And for non-TPA, that would be 2 weeks is what we're looking for. If there are exceptions, that's something that you'll be discussing regularly with the project coordinator. So they'll be marking that. But typically, we're looking for 2 weeks or less for core estimates and less than 48 hours for TPA estimates. Lastly, budget accuracy. We're looking for less than a 5% variance on the budget. If something is constantly being estimated too low and the budget ends up at a higher than a 5% variance, it's going to be very difficult for our project managers to maintain their margins, which is what they're being measured off of. So our production input needs to be accurate within 95%. Target expectations, we were looking for low rework requests from production, less than 10%. So the amount of supplements, the amount of revisions that we get after a job is entered production, we're looking for less than 10% of your jobs requiring addition. And that's for controllable circumstances. We can't put mold in a wall or remove it before they enter production. That's not something you can control. Everything that is controllable, we're looking for less than 10%. We're also looking for positive client and carrier feedback. If you are on it and beating all of your KPIs, you will hear about it. You will hear about that positive feedback internally and externally. So let's keep that up and make sure we maintain good relationships, not just with TPAs and with insurance carriers, but with the clients we interact with as well. Lastly, target expectations. We're looking for consistent profitability contribution. That's a little harder to measure because there's so many hands that touch a job before it actually goes to final billing. But it is very easy to look at estimators side by side who use the same project managers and determine which ones are more profitable than the others. So you will be coached on that. You know, if you're an outlier, you can expect to receive feedback on how to improve that as well. Lastly, your effect on the company. Delivering accurate estimates drives faster authorizations to proceed. So when your estimates are accurate, it allows us to get to that step where we can hand the job off to production faster. We also get higher win rates when we're accurate. When you're estimating accurately, provides trust. When a client receives an estimate and shows 100 square feet, and they measure their own wall, and it only comes out to 80. We don't take any shortcuts, and we're not trying to provide inaccurate estimates. So gain trust, accurate estimates, we get higher win rates. We also need to protect margins and receive fewer disputes from TPAs and carriers. Um, we constantly get revisions for the jobs that we estimate for. We are looking to reduce the number of disputes that we hear back from them. Like I had mentioned before, make sure that that audit gets above 95%. That will reduce the amount of reviews that need to happen by TPA. And then we slip in the additional items that the TPA does not like after we've had a discussion with the carrier. The carrier approves it, TPA can't say anything about it. They're working strictly off the guidelines of the carrier, and they are subservient to them when it comes to um, reviewing estimates for accuracy. Lastly, your effect on the company. You are the first face typically that the client will see. So it's important to maintain our reputation and reliability, because higher reputation or better reputation, more reliability will equal higher profits and more referrals or secondary jobs at the same project location. If you need any help, there are job aids and subject matter experts that can help you. As far as job aids, this document that I'm currently reading off of is going to be distributed for estimators to review, as well as Xactimate work order training video I had mentioned before. PSA Academy is also a great resource for basic function within PSA, within proven jobs, just being able to navigate, know what items your role is able to use, where you can click, where you can't. And as far as subject matter experts, myself, Thomas Eber, or Brian Schuyler will be your SMEs, your subject matter experts for PSA, for moving around inside proven jobs. And where to find help, this document, the PSA Help Library is also available, and there is a YouTube series called the Proven Learning Series available that you can use to gain more knowledge about how you can use proven jobs effectively. Lastly, support@knamsys.com is an email address we can use to get technical support if it is out of the realm responsibility for our IT or anyone else. Uh, Internal contacts for help, I'd mentioned myself and Brian, as well as Steve. Those are your people that you can reach out to for help. And that is a overview of your role and the proven jobs training. Thank you very much. I wasn't recording.